Today we'll start with world classics and in that Greek and Roman writers. Under Greek and Roman writers we'll be discussing Homer, Virgil, Aeschylus, Sophocles, Euripides, Aristophanes and Nikos Kazantzakis, a contemporary writer. So we'll move on to Homer. Homer is said to have lived and wrote during the 8th and 7th century BC, and he is the author of the two influential epic poems of ancient Greece, namely Iliad and Odyssey. And these two works are considered as the first extant works of Western literature. Extant means they are still there, not extinct, not outdated. So they are the Iliad and Odyssey are thought to be as the first extant works of Western literature. And Homer is also considered as one of the most important of all Greek writers and as the progenitor of the whole Western literary tradition. Progenitor means something like an ancestor or a forefather or somebody who pioneered a style, a literary style in this case, or literary tradition, etc. So Homer is considered as a progenitor of the whole Western literary tradition. There are many conflicting traditions and legends about the biography of Homer, but anyway, one of the most convincing versions suggests that Homer was born at Smyrna in the Ionian region of Asia Minor. His epic poems, Iliad and Odyssey, are set in ancient Greece in the 12th century BC during the Bronze Age. So, this period falls during the Bronze Age in the history of human existence, and the Bronze Age is considered as the best or the one of the golden periods in the history of humanity because you see that it was the first time in which humans started to work with metals, and bronze tools and weapons replaced uh, stone weapons, and it was also the period wherein humans made technological advances, and even the first writing system, the invention of the wheel. All this happens during the this Bronze Age. And you see that Iliad and Odyssey were composed in the Ionic dialect of ancient Greece, and this dialect was spoken on the Aegean Islands, Aegean Islands, and in the coastal areas of Asia Minor, which is present-day Turkey. And when we look at Iliad, Iliad is also known as the Song of Ilion or the Song of Ilium, and it is an ancient Greek epic poem which was set during the Trojan War. Now, according to Greek mythology, the Trojan War was a legendary conflict between between the ancient Greeks and the people of Troy. And this war is said to have taken place more than 3000 years ago. And the Trojan War becomes an important backdrop of ancient Greek and Latin literature. And even in the Homeric epics, Iliad and Odyssey, Trojan War is the a central theme. The immediate cause of the war was that Helen was the wife of King Menelaus of Sparta, And Sparta is an ancient city state of ancient Greece. It was the chief city, uh, okay, of ancient Greece. And King Menelaus was the king of Sparta, and his wife was the most beautiful Helen. So she was first called Helen of Troy. So, so Paris, the king of Troy, he went to Greece, and he fell in love with Helen. Even Helen uh, reciprocated the love, and they decided to elope. Uh, and Helen eloped with Paris to Troy, and she refused to return to Menelaus. And this led to the great war in Greek history called the Trojan War. Okay, so it was a fought between the Greeks and the Trojans. So that's called the Trojan War. So this war is the central theme of these two epic poems, the Iliad and Odyssey. Now, in Iliad, you see the battles and events that occur during a fight between King Agamemnon. King Agamemnon is the brother of Menelaus of Sparta. So, King Agamemnon is the brother. So, in Iliad, you find a battle that ensues between King Agamemnon and Achilles. Achilles is a war hero yeah, of the Trojan War. He's a demigod, he's a semi-god. In Iliad, you find the conflict between King Agamemnon and Achilles. So this poem, Iliad, it consists of around 15,693 lines. Okay. Now, Odyssey is a sequel to Iliad, and it also comprises of 12,110 lines. So, both of these epic poems are very lengthy, very large poems. And in this poem, Odyssey, it mainly centers on the Greek hero Odysseus. Odysseus is also known as Ulysses, and he is the king of Ithaca. Okay, and in this Odyssey, you find his journey back home after the Trojan War, and it almost takes 10 years for Odysseus to reach Ithaca after the 10-year Trojan War. So, almost for 20 years he was away from home. And during that time, it was believed by his wife and son. His wife's name was Penelope, and his son name was Telemachus. At that time, in his absence, they believed that he was dead in the Trojan War. But he returns home after the 10-year Trojan War and his 10-year journey, total 20 years. He returns back home, and uh, all those episodes that he comes through or he goes across while he travels back to home, that becomes the theme of Odyssey. So these are the two major epic poems which has completely altered the literary tradition of Western literature. So this is a new style was set in by Homer with these two epics. Next, we move on to Virgil. Virgil lived and wrote during the 70 and 19 BC, and he was a Roman poet, and his full name was Publius Vergilius Maro. So that was the full name of Virgil, and we see three major works of Virgil, the Roman classical poet, and these are the three works for which he is remembered now. And the first one is Bucolics, also known as Eclogues. The second is Georgics, and the third is the most famous Aeneid. Now, from the historical sources, we come to know about the life of Virgil, that he was the son of a farmer, and his father was prosperous enough to give his son the best education. And Virgil is said to have attended school at Milan, and at the age of 17 he went to Rome to study, and there he learned philosophy, rhetoric from the best teachers of the time. And Virgil was very much influenced by the Greek poets, the ancient Greek poets, and as well as his contemporaries. And he wrote eclogues, and eclogues are pastoral poems describing the beauty of Italian uh, scenes or Italian countryside. And his second work, Georgics, that is a much more philosophical and serious work, and in that also he gives the beauty of and the charms of country life, the art of farming, etc. So he was very much reflecting the beauty, the simplicity, the overall life and patterns of the countryside through his poems. And just a year after Georgics was published, he began his great epic, the Aeneid. And in this work also Trojan War becomes a backdrop, and the hero of Aeneid is one of the most heroic figures in the Trojan War, the character named Aeneas, Aeneas. Aeneas is believed to be the founder of the Roman nation, and Virgil devoted more than 10 years to write this work, Aeneid. And but unfortunately, Virgil died before completing the work Aeneid, and it is said that he even requested his best friend of Emperor Augustus, and it is said that Augustus he requested Augustus to destroy the work Aeneid while in his deathbed, because he said that it needed 3 more years of hard work to complete such an epic work. But Augustus published it after the death of Virgil, and thus the literary world got this masterpiece work, Aeneid. And we see that ever since its publication it has continued to influence, it continued to exercise a tremendous influence upon later literatures of all ages. It influenced the Middle Ages to through and the modern ages, even writers like Dante, Chaucer, Shakespeare, Spencer, Milton, Tennyson, and whatnot. Many writers, many generations of writers, and even now in this 21st century, we refer to these epic poems. So that is the greatness of Virgil. And we should also see that this book, Aeneid, was written in 12 books, and he was, as I already told, he was influenced by Greek poets including Homer, and you find a tremendous influence of Homer's Iliad and Odyssey, because the first six books out of the 12, you see that it tells the story of Aeneas' wanderings from the city of Troy to Italy. And in the second half, it tells about the Trojan War in Latium. And you find a very similar theme, like that of Homer's Iliad and Odyssey, because in Odyssey there is the wanderings of the journey by Odysseus, and in Iliad you find an episode of the Trojan War, and just like that, Aeneid is also structured in a similar pattern. And this is also a hefty work, even though it is incomplete, and it consists of 9,896 lines, even though it status it's incomplete. So that is Virgil, the second greatest classical poet,